Well, thank you very much for having me come and talk to you this evening. I think I've met some of you before. I know that I've met Aya before at one of our open days. So really good to see you again. So you're welcome to chip in anytime and ask questions. I don't mind at all. I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about options that don't involve going to higher education and vocational studies. And I think my first piece of information for you is always, whatever you're going to do, choose something you really love. Whatever that is, there'll be a qualification for you in it, I'm sure. And that's always the best way to start. And then if you're interested and you love a subject, then finding something that suits you, that you're interested in, is the most important thing. When you're looking at qualifications to do, if you're thinking about not going to university, then vocational qualifications are a great option. And what they allow you to consider as well is how much exam do you want. So some vocational qualifications have no exams at all, and some vocational options have some exams. Most of them don't have all exams. There's usually a mixture, including some work placements. So those would be a couple of things to consider first of all, in terms of what you know you like to do with assessments. And then I would have a look at the unit guides to see what knowledge and skills those are going to help you develop. And think about, if you have an idea about what sort of job you want to do in the future, or what you want to be doing in the future. Do you want to be caring or selling or motivating or mending or fixing, whatever it is, then think about how that qualification is going to help you towards where you want to go. So those would be my first things to start with.
Oh, that's awesome. I went to RNC as well a long time ago.
Oh, hi, Bridie.
Yeah, and Craig did. I think it's very different now than when we went, but I'm sure it's equally as good. What's your most popular course, Claire, that most people go for?
Yeah, it's hard to say what's most popular. The biggest classes we have at the moment are, oddly, both vocational courses. So the biggest course that we have here is the OCR Cambridge Technical in Business at level 3. So that's a really big class of 10. And we also have a Diploma in Sporting Excellence course, another vocational course, and that's another large class. So those two are always really, really popular. But also some of the A levels like psychology, they tend to be really popular courses as well.
I did psychology, English, and biology at RNC.
Is it biology then? Blimey.
Human biology. We did it at the tech college as well, like partnered up with those.
I think what's really important to say as well is that if now you might think you don't want to go to university, then sometimes people do change their minds. And it's good to be able to keep your options open, because most vocational courses, certainly at level 3, will also help you or allow you to earn UCAS points that you can use towards a university application. So that's a very important thing to check as well, just to keep your options open, because people sometimes change their minds. You might start off thinking, I definitely do or definitely don't want to go to university. And then as time goes by, you might think differently. So it's good to have those options open to you at the beginning.
So do you feel like what kinds of skills can you sort of pick up that, you know, are going to directly translate into something you'd be doing in a job? Is it very job dependent, or are there sort of some overarching skills that you'll pick up from doing this kind of qualification?
Yeah, I think both. So the overarching skills that you would be looking to gain from doing a vocational qualification, whatever that may be, whether that's a Cambridge Technical or a BTEC or an NVQ, I would say the same. So looking at communication skills, verbal and non-verbal and written, all of those are very important. And I think for us here, we put a really big emphasis on how do you communicate in a visual world. So with sighted people, whether you're creating documents that are going to be visually pleasing, or whether you're entering into a meeting with clients and wanting them to warm to you and to communicate non-verbally really effectively. So those are skills I think that go across all of those courses. And I would also say things like organisation, personal preparedness, and even things like self-advocacy as well, I think come into all of those vocational courses, actually, because you have to drive things forward yourself. And you have to be an active learner to be able to manage on those courses. So all of those are 100% transferable skills.
What would you say is the more benefits of going to RNC than, say, you know, a mainstream college?
Okay, well, I think it's got to be right for the person. For some people to go to a mainstream college would be the right thing, and for others to come to RNC would be the right thing. But what I can say with certainty is that the students who come here really enjoy developing friendship groups. So that social side of life, I think, is a really significant, and being able to be in a study group with other peers, working through the same kinds of problems and issues, and being able to talk really openly about them with non-sighted or visually impaired peers, I think is a big benefit of being here, I would say. Of course, the other benefit from being here is that you have access to those specialist teachers who have experience in teaching students with visual impairments. So we're used to, for example, working with a range of access technology. We're used to preparing resources in a range of formats, and that's our normal daily life. So you don't have to push, you don't have to keep reminding teachers to make things accessible for you, because we just do that all the time.
I can definitely recommend the friendship side of things, and you know, the independence it brings as well. You know, if you've been living at home, and like I enjoyed that side of it, and that's where I met Craig like a million years ago, and we still put up with each other. So
over a decade and a half ago, there's probably some of you guys in this room that are like, yeah,
not as old.
yeah, exactly.
I wanted to quickly say my internet's dodgy, so if I drop out, it's because my internet's gone.
That's right. Thanks for the heads up.
I think one of the aspects that you could make a link there to those independent skills with the vocational courses is looking at, say, for example, some courses require you to do work placements or to get evidence from employers. And what is important is to have those mobility skills to be able to support you to get there, for example, and to access the work placement. So that's something to consider when you're looking at those types of courses.
When I finished my A-levels at secondary school, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do afterwards as a career, what I wanted to do straight away or in the long term even. I knew I didn't want to go to university because I didn't want to amass all that debt that comes with it. It wasn't for me. I'm not saying it's the wrong option. I'm just saying it wasn't for me. So once I finished school and decided I wasn't going to university, the first thing I did was I started looking online at different jobs, and they will say, oh, you need experience, and oh, you need to be able to drive, you need this, that, or the other. So then I started looking I first looked on the typical job boards, Indeed, Reed, that lot, the first ones that come up on Google search. But then I kind of thought I had to start looking a little bit differently. So what I did was I looked on the National Apprenticeship website, which lists all of the apprenticeships up and down the country and the different levels, and you can search by the different levels as well. For example, from level 2, so NVQ level 2, which is equivalent to GCSE, up to degree level apprenticeships. So I had a little look around, and considering my grades, I could have gone for something higher, but I actually went for a level 2 apprenticeship because I was after experience more than anything else. Considering I couldn't get any experience from any job that wasn't an apprenticeship because they generally required experience, and also they're out of reach for me. So I got a job as a business and administration apprentice at Capita, which was based at Essex County Council. The reason I got that was, well, I looked at other jobs at Essex County Council, and Capita, who were based there doing the recruitment and compliance for them, had an apprenticeship for about 3 people, and I applied for it thinking to myself, that will get me into work essentially and get me some experience. So I did that. I applied for that. I got an interview through the guaranteed interview scheme through for what is it called? Confident about disabled people or something like that. I can't remember exactly. So I had that interview, and then I had a second interview. Then I got the role. Now the reason I thought that was so good was because I lived in a small town away from where the building was based, but because of where the council was based, and because of my disability and because I couldn't drive, that was the best because it had good public transport links, so it was easy to get into. And also I thought to myself, being a big organisation, I thought they'd be a bit more, rightly or wrongly, I thought they'd be a bit more willing to take on someone with a disability or a vision, disability, any disability really, but visual impairment in my case. So I got into that role, which was great. So, I mean, it was really good for me personally because it got me out and about. I enjoyed the social side of things. The work was, it was a good entry into work. It wasn't too difficult, but it did expose me to a lot of different things that you don't get in school, such as dealing with people face to face or on the phone, dealing with other people. The work not just being your own work, but you having to be very reliant on other people to come back to you with different things to get your work done, essentially. It also kind of helped me to, start working not just for myself like you would at school, but in a team on a daily basis. And as an apprentice, you're kind of eased into that. So you don't come in with so much responsibility that you struggle. They kind of hand you little bits, and over the course of the 12-month apprenticeship, I went into different departments, but it was compliance and recruitment. So I did basically checks for people who were starting Essex County Council, and also covering inboxes for recruitment, and dealing with basic recruitment queries really, which was great because, like I say, it was nothing too complex, but it really kind of settled me into the workplace and helped start my career really. And was it now 8 years on, I'm still doing compliance for Essex County Council. So yeah, that's my journey with an apprenticeship. And I'd say, like I've kind of touched on already, the real positives of that were it got me into the workplace. The pay is not necessarily too great to begin with, but it is your first job, and it does get you experience, which I think is the most important thing when you first start out in a career. You're not going to go straight into a 60k a year job. You need to start low, but it's a great stepping stone, and it's a great, and at the end of the day you do get qualification, which is great on your CV, and it helps with progression to better jobs and a good career.
That's really good, Liam. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, Liam. Thank you.
I suppose you have already touched on this already, but did you find that it was difficult to get? So you didn't really find there was a problem with landing that apprenticeship in spite of your vision impairment. Do you think that was because you happened to pick somewhere that was, should we go maybe more disabled friendly, in the sense that it was a local county council?
I mean, that was my thinking at the time. I was 19 at the time, and I wanted to go into somewhere which advertised the fact they were disability friendly.
Yeah.
Going into organizations which state on the like the job advert, you must drive and you must do this, that and the other, and travel to all these different locations. It was quite daunting for me as a 19-year-old who wasn't, the situation is different now, but back then, when I wasn't very confident traveling independently, I wanted somewhere where I could kind of be absorbed into the organization and didn't have to travel too much, and would promote being disability friendly and would be very helpful towards my disability. And to be fair, they were. So I can't really touch on access to work too much, because Capita, who took me as an apprentice, were good in supplying all the adjustments that I needed themselves, which sped things up really, which I imagine if it was for an different organisation, they might have had to go for access to work and it could take more time. But I'm sure access to work is great. I just don't have any experience of it. But the fact they brought me in and brought me a big monitor, which I need for my vision impairment, and the necessary adjustments within my first week was great. So yeah.
That's a really good sign if they're straight on the ball and they're really helping to get things adjusted for you straight away.
Yeah, so I think it took me 4 or 5 weeks between being offered the job and actually starting, because they wanted to get all the adjustments in place, and you know, and everyone was very friendly, everyone was very aware. It was really good.
Is that when you sort of known you'd picked somewhere that was actually going to be accommodating to you then, when they
Yeah,
said?
so I mean, I had the stresses of starting my first job, which, you know, I think everyone would have, but as far as the disability related stuff goes, that was all very good and all very well taken care of.